In another major development, President Cyril Ramaphosa has now acknowledged President Donald Trump's letter imposing a 30% tariff on South African exports to the US, citing trade imbalances and market restrictions. But Pretoria, is contesting this interpretation, arguing that the tariffs will harm local manufacturers and exporters who rely heavily on the US market. Ramaphosa's administration has emphasized long-standing economic and diplomatic ties with the US, though, positioning this current dispute as a test of mutual cooperation. Let's make sense of the impact that's likely to unfold from this. Bring in economist Dr. Peter Baur, who joins us now via our video link. Doc, it's lovely to have you on the SABC News channel. Thanks very much indeed for agreeing to come on. Is this the start of the end of AGOA?
That's going to be very difficult to actually sort of interpret. I think South Africa is still significantly important to the United States in terms of trade, especially in terms of the raw materials that we export to the USA, as well as other semi-manufactured goods. And of course, don't forget the agricultural products. So I think South Africa is significant to America, and I think America will play a big role in our own industry too. So I think we do have room for interpretation in terms of how we go about negotiating the way forward. I do very much believe that this impact will not only harm South African businesses in terms of the quantity which we export, and of course, given the current South African economic condition, particularly the low levels of growth and the high levels of uncertainty that we're currently experiencing. I think it's also going to affect the American businesses too. For themselves, these kind of tariffs increase the price of goods in America as well, which then has an implication on their own cost of producing goods, as well as it'll translate to the consumer. So in America, I think they're equally at risk right now.
Sure. Help us understand this, conversation around the interpretation of the balance of trade. I mean, is there a way to calculate these things for lay people to understand how somebody like Trump, for example, got to this 30%?
Yes, and I think this is where from South Africa's side, we look at the way in which this has been interpreted as being incredibly flawed. And America is looking at how many goods, while the total value of goods that we're exporting to America versus the total value of goods that we're importing from America. The interpretation here is that America is a very much larger economy. It's much bigger. There's a great many more goods that we will sell to the United States than what we're going to purchase from the USA, just in terms of size of the overall population, the size of the economy, et cetera, et cetera. So what is the way they're looking at it is they're saying, well, we're obviously exporting a lot more to America than we're importing, and they're basing the tariff on that. And that, of course, in itself is fundamentally flawed in the sense that, when we look at calculating tariffs, there are other methods of really accurately measuring the impact on an economy. But this overall, shall we say, this umbrella approach that is being applied by America is definitely flawed in many, many ways. And I think South Africa has a lot of room to negotiate for far better terms of trade. And our teams are on it. We're really looking at highlighting the strengths from the South African economy, what value we can add to the economy. But again, as I mentioned earlier, what I'm concerned is not only is it going to impact again on us, but look at the American consumer too, and the negative implications. And we're going to see this going forward over the next few months.
Yeah, really concerning. And in many instances, of course, we speak about South Africa and the US, but the people really on the coalface of this are the companies, right? Because it's companies ultimately that produce these products. And I wonder then what the message is to South African companies watching all of this unfold whilst these behind closed doors negotiations continue.
Yeah, we really do need to brace ourselves going forward. The period of uncertainty is here. I think once as we go forward, as we start to create better trade relationships, better trade deals with the United States, we might be able to reduce some of that uncertainty. But we really do need to brace ourselves going forward. We are unsure how it's going to impact us, how those prices are going to evolve and impact on us going forward. But I think South African businesses, we need to also focus on looking at alternatives, looking at the rest of the world. I think stronger better relationships between South Africa and other African countries, between South Africa and our BRICS relationships, as well as the European Union and China, are still very significant to us. And I think we need to really bolster and develop our relationships with those countries still going forward. That'll give us definitely a competitive advantage. I still think South Africa is still very competitive on the international market. So we do have opportunities. We do have windows of opening and opportunities opening for us that'll really keep South Africa within that international playing field.
Yeah, the presidency ends their statement as they respond to this letter from Donald Trump by saying that the government is urging trade negotiation teams and South African companies to accelerate their diversification efforts in order to promote better resilience, which I think is also quite a telling statement. Dr. Peter Baur, for your take, thanks very much indeed. Appreciate your time on the SABC News Channel this Tuesday morning.